They called him crazy, reckless, a liability to the entire squadron. But when enemy bombers darkened the skies over Britain in 1943 and every other crew was missing their targets, Sergeant James "Mad Jack" Sullivan was the only gunner bringing them down, one after another, with a method so unorthodox it defied every rule in the manual. Before I tell you what happened next, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I love knowing who's listening. It was October, and the air raid sirens screamed across the English countryside. Anti-aircraft crews scrambled to their positions, hearts pounding, fingers fumbling with ammunition, as German bombers rumbled overhead like rolling thunder. At Battery Station 7, Sergeant Sullivan stood at his gun, calm, almost eerily so, while chaos erupted around him. His commanding officer, Captain Reynolds, barked orders from the command post, his voice tight with frustration. For weeks, their hit rate had been abysmal, barely 12%. They were firing thousands of rounds into the sky, burning through precious ammunition, and the bombers kept coming, untouched, unstoppable. But Sullivan, he didn't fire. Not yet. While every other gunner unleashed hell into the darkness, tracers streaking wildly upward, he stood with his eyes half closed, his hand resting on the gun's traverse wheel, listening. The other gunners laughed nervously. "Mad Jack's praying again," one muttered. Another snorted. "He's gonna get us all killed." But Sullivan wasn't praying. He was counting. Counting the seconds between the engine roar and the shadow crossing the searchlight beam. Counting the rhythm of the Heinkel's propellers, the slight hitch in the starboard engine that meant the pilot was banking left. He wasn't aiming where the plane was. He was aiming where it would be. Then, without warning, he fired. 3 rounds, precise, controlled. The sky erupted in a fireball 2,000 feet up. The bomber spiraled downward, trailing black smoke, crashing into the fields beyond the base perimeter. The entire battery froze. Even the sirens seemed to hold their breath. Captain Reynolds stormed over, his face red, his fists clenched. "Sullivan, what the hell was that? You're supposed to lay down suppressive fire, not play sniper with a flak gun." Sullivan turned, his jaw set, his voice steady. "Sir, we're not hitting anything because we're firing at ghosts. We're aiming at where they were, not where they're going. If we keep wasting rounds on empty air, we'll run dry before the night's over." Reynolds's eyes narrowed. "You saying I don't know how to run my battery?" "I'm saying the manual's wrong, sir." The words hung in the air like a challenge. The other gunners shifted uncomfortably. No one questioned command. Not in wartime. Not when lives hung in the balance. But Reynolds didn't throw him in the brig. Not yet. Because that night, Sullivan's method had just saved a dozen homes from burning. Still, doubt gnawed at the captain. What if it was luck? What if Mad Jack's gamble got good men killed? The next raid came 48 hours later. This time, Reynolds watched from the observation tower, binoculars pressed to his eyes. Sullivan stood at his gun, motionless, while the others fired frantically into the black. Tracers crisscrossed the sky like desperate prayers. Then Sullivan moved. One smooth rotation of the traverse wheel. A slight elevation adjustment. He fired. 4 rounds. Another bomber exploded mid-flight, debris raining down like shattered stars. The crew erupted in stunned cheers, but Sullivan didn't celebrate. He simply reloaded, reset his stance, and waited for the next target. Reynolds's hands trembled around the binoculars. He'd never seen anything like it. By dawn, Sullivan had downed 5 bombers. The rest of the battery combined had hit 2. The numbers didn't lie. Reynolds called him into the command tent. The air inside was thick with cigarette smoke and exhaustion. Sullivan stood at attention, his face unreadable. "Explain it to me," Reynolds said quietly. "How are you doing this?" Sullivan hesitated, then spoke. "My father was a duck hunter, sir. He taught me that you don't shoot where the bird is. You shoot where it's going. Same principle. I watch the bomber's altitude, speed, engine pitch. I listen for the wind. I calculate the delay between firing and impact. Then I place the round where the plane will be in 5 seconds." Reynolds leaned back, stunned. "You're doing ballistics calculations in your head? In the middle of a raid?" "Every time, sir." For a moment, the captain said nothing. Then he exhaled slowly. "I'm making you lead instructor. You're going to teach every gunner on this base your method. And if anyone calls you Mad Jack again, they'll answer to me." Within 3 weeks, Battery Station 7's hit rate jumped from 12% to 37%. Other squadrons heard about Sullivan's technique and requested transfers just to train under him. By war's end, his method had been quietly adopted across dozens of bases, credited with downing hundreds of enemy aircraft and saving countless civilian lives. Because courage isn't always loud. Sometimes it's the quiet voice that says, "There's a better way." Because true strength isn't following orders blindly. It's knowing when to stand for what's right, even when the world calls you crazy. And sometimes, the man everyone doubts becomes the hero no one saw coming. So what do you think? Have you ever trusted your instincts when everyone said you were wrong? Share your story below. I read every comment. And if this story moved you, don't forget to subscribe for more powerful tales of courage, kindness, and justice that restore your faith in humanity.